Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 21 based on novel. So let's start. Resplendent golden light erupted from the Nirvana monument. When the golden light erupted, not only did it capture the attention of everyone within the large arena, numerous astonished gazes were casted from outside of the large arena as well. Captivating all the eyeballs, the surging golden light charged into the earth category like a hot knife through butter and directly broke through the top 10 rankings. Because of Mu Hanyu and Chang Ling's advancements, Yin Sen's ranking had dropped from the 9th to the 11th rank. And now, when the golden light charged mightily into the top 10 rankings, Yin Sen's name was flung ruthlessly to the 12th rank. Upon seeing this, Yin Sen's facial expression became exceptionally unsightly. He had heard of Mu Hanyu and Chang Lin's reputations. Therefore, even though the fact that they surpassed him on the Nirvana monument pissed him off, he still could accept it. However, given the current situation, how could some new guy who appeared out of nowhere surpass him? At this moment, Yin Sen started to suspect if the Nirvana monument was spoiled. However, no matter how unsightly Yin Sen's facial expression was, the flickering golden light did not show any sign of disappearing abruptly. Even after surpassing Yin Sen's name, it did not show any sign of slowing down and continued climbing up. Under the surrounding commotion, the golden light pushed down Mu Hanyue's name as well. At this moment, the white-robed Mu Hanyue's beautiful eyes slightly froze and he looked at the young fellow, who was standing before Nirvana monument and touching it with a single hand, with his uber-black eyebrows slightly knitted. Not far away, a slight surprised look even appeared on Chang Lin's peaceful face at this moment. His initial facial expression, which was entertained by the commotion, was replaced by traces of solemnness. That was because he saw the golden light did not extinguish even after surpassing Mu Hanyue's name. Instead, it continued to climb with an unhurried speed. It's already at the 7th rank. A wave of rumbling sounds erupted around the Nirvana monument. All the onlookers were looking in or at the golden light, which had already climbed to the 7th rank. Indistinctly, the flowing blood in their bodies seemed to show sign of boiling. It had been quite a while since these onlookers saw a dark horse that could disrupt the rankings like this. Brother Lindong is so powerful. Suru's face was pleasantly surprised while her big eyes were filled with adoration. In her eyes, Tsukue's result was already very good. However, it paled in comparison to Lindong's result. On one side, Tsukue was nodding his head excitedly. Initially, he predicted that it would be quite a good result if Lindong could reach the 10th rank. However, he did not expect latter's charge into the rankings to be so ferocious. It's still too early to be excited. Little Martin laughed indifferently. He clearly understood Lindong's capabilities. If Chang Ling could reach the 5th rank, Lindong would absolutely hit a higher rank than him. After hearing Little Martin's words, which did not seem to be a joke, the pleasantly surprised look on Suruo's face became more obvious. In contrast, Tsukue was gradually becoming emotionally moved. He could not help but purse his lips. Did this fellow really come from a low-ranked empire? This kind of capabilities was enough for Lindong to match up against some of the elite fighters from those super empires. It's already at the 6th rank. Just as Little Martin finished his sentence, an uproar erupted again. One could see that the golden light unhurriedly surpassed the 6th rank. It's moving again and it's going to surpass Chang Ling. Just as the commotion broke out, another one suddenly broke out again. The onlookers saw the flickering golden light started to climb again. This time around, it even pushed down the 5th rank, which Chang Ling had not occupied for long. Brother Chang Ling, this fellow, is not simple. We do not know where he is from as well, a man beside Chang Ling concurred solemnly as he saw this scene. He's indeed not simple. Chang Ling nodded his head slowly while his facial expression was solemn as well. In a soft voice, Chang Ling continued, there are really hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the ancient battlefield. Every now and then, there will be such seclusive dark horses emerging. We don't even know which rank he can actually achieve. At the top of the rankings, they are the elite fighters of the 4 super empires. Reportedly, those fellows have even fought with 4 UR Nirvana stage practitioners before, that man beside Chang Ling said. I'm curious too. Chang Ling raised his head and looked at the back of the young fellow in front of the Nirvana monument. He wanted to see if the guy who had just surpassed him could challenge the elite fighters of those super empires. The golden light was glittering on the Nirvana monument. Unconsciously, there were more and more people being attracted to this area. Eventually, these people stared at the slow climbing golden light with a shocking look on their faces. That golden light was gradually getting nearer to the fourth rank of the Earth category. The noisy vicinity of the Nirvana monument oddly became much more quiet. Numerous gazes were staring at the golden light, which was getting closer and closer to the fourth rank. It was as if everyone's hearts were being pulled and they did not even dare to breathe. It has been surpassed. Suddenly, a hoarse alarmed voice rang across the area. All the onlookers' hearts tugged firmly. That was because they saw the slow climbing golden light genuinely surpassing the fourth rank and replacing it. It's not stopping. However, after the fourth rank was being replaced, they numbly discovered that the golden light did not stop. Immediately, some people could not help but give off moaning sounds. Following which, just like before, the golden light continued to climb. Instead of climbing rapidly, the golden light was climbing with a slow and steady speed. Finally, under numerous stupefied gaze, a dumbstruck look gradually appearing on everyone's faces. The third rank and the even second rank were surpassed. Earth category, second. A cool breeze swept across the area. In front of the Nirvana monument, numerous onlookers' facial expressions froze and these onlookers stared unbelievably at this scene. Clearly, they could not imagine that an unfamiliar newcomer could reach such a high rank. The top 4 rankings belonged to the elite fighters of those super empires. These fighters were outstanding and reputable individuals in Wanxiang City. However, right now, they had been easily surpassed by an unknown youth. The onlookers could imagine the huge uproar that would be created in the Wanxiang City if news of this was to spread. At this moment, everyone's breathing became heavy and their eyes became boiling hot suddenly. They stared firmly at the flickering golden light. They knew that if that golden light went up by one more rank, Lindong would reach the peak of the Earth category. This scene would cause everyone to go crazy. While numerous hurried breathing noises could be heard all around, even cool-headed individuals like Mu Hanyu and Chang Ling could not help but clench the fists in their sleeves tightly. They clearly knew if that was what happened next, an enormous commotion would be created in this city. Under numerous attentive gazes, the golden light flickered. However, it did not continue to climb like what everyone had expected. Instead, the golden light strangely stopped for a while before it started to shrink. Eventually, the golden light formed 2 words. Lindong. Sai. When that name appeared, sighs were given off by the onlookers in front of the Nirvana monument at almost the same time. They must be disappointed by the fact that they could not see the most stunning scene. However, these sighing sounds lasted for a while, before a sky-trembling commotion erupted once again on the large arena. Countless boiling eyes converged onto Lindong. It must be that they wanted to see if this mysterious individual, who surpassed the 3 super empires' elite fighters, possessed remarkable abilities. Earth category, second. Little Martin took a glance at Lindong's back and furrowed his eyebrows. He is extremely aware of Lindong's potential. He knew that Lindong must have repressed the surging golden light at the last moment. Otherwise, he was definitely capable of charging towards the first rank. The infantry usually bear the brunt of attack, however, little Martin was quick-witted. After thinking for a while, he knew Lindong's apprehension. Even though they had a powerful lineup, there was no need to have such a high profile in this kind of place. With holding a trump card on hand always brought about unexpected benefits. Yin Sen was looking at that golden name with stiffness in his face. The 2 words Lindong was pressuring him until the point that he was unable to breathe. If Lindong only reached the 5th or 6th rank, he might worry, but not until this extent. However, unfortunately, Lindong's final result was not a 5th rank or 6th rank, but a 2nd rank instead. Yin Sen was no fool. He understood what the rank symbolized. He also clearly understood that this youth, who had just surpassed the 3 other super empires' elite fighters, was no pushover. Mu Hanyu's beautiful eyes was fixated on the figure, who was standing tall and straight like an upright spear. She pursed her red luscious lips and there was an unusual expression in her eyes. She displayed such behavior not because she was attracted to Lin Dong. Instead, it was an instinctive behavior that women portrayed when they saw an extremely outstanding man. Little Martin, both of you should give it a go too. Under the countless attentive gazes, Lin Dong turned around with a warm smile on his face. He did not exude the mightiness that helped him surpass the other three Super Empire's elite fighters. However, at the same time, no one dared to despise this fellow in front of them. Little Martin shot a glance at Lin Dong and did not reject the latter. He knew that if they wanted to have a footing in a city like Wanxiang City, where geniuses and hidden dragons and crouching tigers were everywhere, keeping a low profile would only bring them endless troubles. Little Martin walked out and put his palm indifferently onto the ice-cold Nirvana monument. Just as everyone's gazes were shifted in the direction of Little Martin, the resplendent golden light had already erupted. With a swoosh and under the alarmed gazes of the onlookers, the golden light barbarically charged into the top 10 rankings. Finally, it stopped beneath Lin Dong and replaced the third rank. Then, the golden light coagulated and formed two words. Lin Jiao. A category, third. The whole process took less than 5 seconds. All the onlookers on the large arena became speechless when they saw Little Martin walked back while wiping his palms apathetically even before the golden light disappeared completely. After Little Martin walked back, Little Flame grinned and walked forward and put his big hands onto the monument. Buzz. Under those dumbstruck gazes, the golden light began to surge. Eventually, it broke through the top 10 rankings like a hot knife through butter. Finally, it stopped beneath Little Martin before the golden light started to coagulate. Lin Yang. Earth category, fourth. At this moment, everyone's facial expressions froze. They looked at hovering golden words and their heads were spinning involuntarily. Less than 10 minutes, the Earth category's second to fourth ranks had found their new respective owners. Phew! At this moment, the cool-headed Mu Hanyu heaved a deep breath of aroma and looked at the three figures standing before the Nirvana monument with her beautiful eyes. Monopolizing 3 ranks out of the top 4 rankings. Even the 4 great super empires in Wanxiang City could not have attained such achievement. However, this achievement had been attained by that 3 strangers. These fellows. Who are they? Mu Hanyu pursed her red lips tightly. She knew that the Wanxiang City would surely become increasingly fiery with the appearance of these 3 persons. The surroundings of the Nirvana monument was completely silent. Everyone's attention was focused on the 3 figures. Everyone was clearly aware just how shocking this news would be once it spread throughout the entire Wanxiang City. The first 4 names in the Earth rank category were basically dominated by the prized fighters from the 4 great super empires, and it had been a long time since anyone was able to challenge them. However, the Lin Dong trio had basically took 3 of those spots today. Furthermore, anyone could tell from their names that they were closely related. In fact, they likely belonged to the same empire. If that was truly the case, this empire's strength was simply too startling. Sukue was shocked when he saw this sight as he involuntarily swallowed. He had already viewed Lin Dong's abilities in high regards. However, Sukue never expected that Lin Dong could actually take the second spot. Furthermore, Little Martin and Little Flame were closely behind and were only 1 spot behind Lin Dong. Their strength and lineup was simply too terrifying. Those 3 fellows, I really wonder how they managed to pull off such a feat after all. They only came from a low-rank empire, yet their capabilities are able to match and even exceed some super empires. Sukue bitterly laughed in his heart. As he compared himself to the Lin Dong trio, he finally realized the gap between them. Beside him, Su Ru did not dwell too long on this issue. When she saw the Lin Dong trio's superb performance, her tiny face was filled with a joyous smile. Promptly, she grinned as she turned to stare at a despondent Yin senator. That fellow was previously so proud of the fact that he had obtained the 9th rank. However, right now, he had been directly pushed down to the 14th position. Lin Dong smiled as he turned to look at Little Martin, before he gently nodded his head. He knew Little Martin's abilities and there was no way he would merely belong to the top 3 ranking of this lowly category. If he really wanted to, he could easily rush into the heaven category and tower over everyone. However, that would attract too much attention. As he lifted his head, Lin Dong's attention turned towards the golden Nirvana monument. On top of the Earth category, the three Lin family names were exceptionally eye-catching. However, he only glanced at those three names before he looking above those names. At that spot, there was an even larger golden name floating. Luo Tong, first in the Earth category, Windcloud Empire. A member of the Windcloud Empire? Lin Dong observed the empire name that only appeared for the number 1 ranker as his eyes narrowed a little. He never expected that the top-ranked member of the Earth category would actually be from the Windcloud Empire. Luo Tong is extremely powerful, and I've heard that he is attacking the 4th Nirvana Tribulation. If he is successful, the Windcloud Empire will have another heavyweight member. Behind Lin Dong, Tsukue softly spoke in an extremely wary tone. Attacking the 4th Nirvana Tribulation? Lin Dong chuckled. It's no wonder he was able to tower over the other prized fighters from the 3 great super empires. Looks like he was indeed quite skilled. While they spoke, Lin Dong's attention turned to the spot above the Earth category. However, it was completely enshrouded by a golden glow and he could not discern anything at all. Nirvana Monument Heaven category. Only the experts that can reach that stage are able to see it. Those fellows are mostly the heads of the super empires and they are all extremely powerful. Lin Dong gently nodded his head. It was said that as long as one could hit the heaven category, one would have the qualifications to attack the so-called Nirvana Golden Board. It seems like the members of the heaven category were truly of a different caliber. Lin Dong looked at it for a while, before he retracted his attention. Next, he turned around before he calmly gazed at a stiff-looking Yin Sen and asked, "Do we have the qualifications now?" When he heard these words, Yin Sen's expression instantly deflated, like a cigar hitting snow, while the raging and powerful practitioners standing behind him similarly deflated and did not dare to display any signs of hostility. What a joke! In front of the trio who were powerful enough to rival the prized fighters from the super empires, even with Yin Sen, all of them together would not even be able to threaten them. White and green alternated on Yin Sen's face. However, even a haughty and arrogant man like him did not dare to speak anymore. After releasing a dry laugh, he led his men and sourly withdrew. Lin Dong glanced at their backs, but he had no intention of seeking trouble with them. He knew Yin Sen's character and he believed that he knew who he could afford to offend and who he could not. These 3 friends, my name is Chang Ling. If you guys don't mind, perhaps we can be friends. Just as Yin Sen and his men left, from beside the Lin Dong trio, Chang Ling could resist no longer as he walked up and cupped his fists towards the 3 of them, before he greeted them with a smile. Lin Dong looked at this man, who had originally clinched the 5th spot but was now squeezed down to the 8th spot because of them. When he realized that the latter's expression was sincere and held no bitterness, he immediately smiled before he cupped his fist and replied, "Lin Dong. These are my 2 brothers, Lin Jiao and Lin Yang. This is the first time in Wanxiang City that 3 out of the top 5 ranks of the Earth category is occupied by the same empire. The Lin brothers must be truly skilled. I believe that all of you will certainly shine in the upcoming 100 Empire War." Chang Ling sincerely remarked. "We got lucky." Lin Dong smiled as he said. Chang Ling smiled as he shook his head. Luck played no role in the Nirvana Monument test. However, since Lin Dong was unwilling to elaborate, he swiftly changed the topic and asked, "Since the Lin brothers have chanced upon Wanxiang City, I believe that you must be after the Wanxiang auction that is being held in 2 days' time." Wanxiang auction? Lin Dong was stunned for a moment. The Wanxiang auction is the most prominent location in the entire Wanxiang City and is only opened every 2 months. This auction is basically the largest auction in the entire ancient battlefield. That is because once one passes through the Wanxiang City, one would be able to enter the central area and partake in the 100 Empire War. Therefore, many people hope to buy some treasures in that place in order to boost their strength. Beside Lin Dong, Tsukue softly explained. Upon hearing this, Lin Dong gently nodded his head. Wanxiang City was one of the major cities and there were countless elites gathered here. Therefore, there was a good chance that someone might have found some unknown mystical treasures in this area and brought it to the auction. If they were lucky, they might actually encounter some legendary treasures. It is said that there is a heavenly soul treasure available in the auction this time around. If the three of you are interested, you should take a look. Just as this thought crossed Lin Dong's mind, an exceptionally cold and clear voice suddenly sounded out. Lin Dong lifted his head only to see that Mu Han Yu, who was dressed in white, had unknowingly appeared in front of him. Her stunning face was cold yet exquisite. "Miss Mu, many thanks for the information." With regards to this ice princess who was backed by a super empire, Lin Dong did not dare to be disrespectful. Immediately, he cupped his hands and thanked her. He knew that the reason why their relationship warmed and even this exceptionally ice-cold Mu Han Yu would take the initiative to speak to them was because of the four names hovering at the top of the Nirvana Monuments Earth category. In fact, even the super empires would not dare to look down on their rankings. Furthermore, if they could use this opportunity to recruit them, their strength would surely surge. Perhaps Mu Han Yu had this thought in mind. After all, even if she could not recruit them, it would be good to build some relations. Mu Han Yu nodded gently, before her beautiful eyes glanced at Lin Dong. However, that was all, and she was not overly affectionate. She was still slightly cold as she turned around and left. Lin Dong glanced at Mu Han Yu as alluring back as he chuckled. This lady was not only beautiful, but also exceptionally smart. "Ha ha, brother Lin Dong, Mu Han Yu is the most famous beauty in Wanxiang City. Furthermore, she has the Lone Moon Empire backing her. There are numerous men who pine for her in hopes of dashing towards the heavens." Chang Ling saw Lin Dong's reaction as Mu Han Yu left and could not help but say, "A beauty is lovely, but it is too far." Lin Dong smiled. Over the years, he had met plenty of ladies. In terms of appearance, none of them surpassed Ling Qingxu. In fact, even Mu Han Yu was slightly lacking. Perhaps, it can be said that he did not have a romantic bone in his body. However, even Lin Qingxu's beauty could not captivate him and turn him into a worker bee orbiting around her. Therefore, there was no way Mu Han Yu could do so. The Lin brothers' performance was simply too outstanding, and you guys may attract the attention of some super empires. Perhaps, they will be interested in recruiting the three of you. Chang Ling casually commented. The three of us have gotten used to being free spirits and have no intention of joining a super empire. Lin Dong casually said. Chang Ling was an intelligent man. When he heard their words, he silently heaved a sigh of relief. The Lin trio was extremely powerful. Therefore, if they were recruited by a super empire, it was not good news for them. After the two of them conversed for a while, Chang Ling finally turned and left. Meanwhile, Lin Dong's group did not linger on any further, and they directly left the arena under the attention of the crowd. "Brother Sukue, perhaps we should take a look at the auction coming up in 2 days." After leaving the arena, Lin Dong turned to Sukue as he smiled and said, "Yes, let me arrange it." Sukue nodded. He had stayed in the Wanxiang city for a time and was more familiar with this area. Therefore, it was most appropriate for him to take care of the arrangements. "Why? Are you interested in the auction?" Little Martin lazily asked. "A heavenly soul treasure. That is somewhat that we must see. This kind of item is too powerful. If someone else obtain it, it will become a deadly weapon." Lin Dong slowly nodded his head while he softly said, "Heavenly soul treasure." They had yet to encounter such an object in the entire mysterious treasure trove. However, they had never expected that it would actually appear in the auction. One wonders just where it had appeared from. It seems like there was going to be a terrible bloodbath over this heavenly soul treasure. Night fell and completely engulfed the gigantic Wanxiang city. However, the clamor and fervor in the city did not die out due to it. Instead, it began to intensify under the shroud of darkness. Lin Dong's group found a quiet and secluded courtyard in the city to serve as a temporary resting spot. Wanxiang City was extremely huge, and even though there were countless number of elite practitioners gathering in the city did not appear overly crowded. However, things did not proceed as Lin Dong and the rest had expected. After the Nirvana Monument test, the focal point of the entire city had turned to the three of them. All the empires were trying to uncover every bit of information about them. After all, taking the top 4 spots of the Earth category had evidently caused quite a stir in the city. Any empire would find it worthwhile to try and recruit these 3 individuals who could rival the prized fighters of the super empires. In the courtyard, Lin Dong and several other people were seated quietly. Their eyes casually swept across the night sky. Faintly, they could detect several hidden individuals monitoring them. "These guys are truly irritating," Lin Dong somewhat helplessly shook his head as he said. "Nothing can be done about it. The feats that you have performed are simply too stunning, and it is normal that you attract such attention." Seated beside them, Sukue laughed as he said. After knowing the strength of Lin Dong's group, he clearly felt more at peace. In his opinion, even though the Wind Cloud Empire was very powerful, Lin Dong's group was likewise no pushovers. Since they were under their protection, he believed that Suru would be in much safer hands. However, this type of protection led him to feel a little uncomfortable. Frankly speaking, he did not have a deep relationship with Lin Dong's group. Even though the 3 of them had voluntarily assisted them and even voluntarily offended the Wind Cloud Empire on their behalf, in Sukue's opinion it still seemed a little incredulous. Lin Dong glanced at Sukue, who had suddenly stopped speaking. The latter did not conceal his emotions on his rough-looking face. Immediately, he pursed his lips and turned to Suru, before he softly said, "Brother Sukue, there is no need to worry. In this world, there is no one who will help you out and protect you for free. You can treat us as individuals who have helped you on account of Little Ru's immense potential. I believe that once Little Ruo learns to control the mysterious power within her body, she will become extremely powerful. In other words, once the immense power within Little Ru is discovered by those super sects, she will be immediately recruited by them. After which, she will have a rather bright future. Ha ha, the world is as such. Sometimes, 1 ounce of luck is more important than 9 ounces of hard work." When they spoke about this point, even Lin Dong could not help but sigh. In this ancient battlefield, countless talented individuals had worked extremely hard in hopes of being selected by the super sects. However, most of them faltered in the face of the intense competition. However, the blessed Suru now had the opportunity to be selected by those super sects. This matter definitely caused one's heart to feel unfairness. Sukue was startled as he watched Lin Dong's face. Finally, he chuckled before solemnly nodding his head. There is no need to be so self-depreciating. Having good fortune can indeed allow one to take shortcuts. However, the journey is still a tough one. In fact, this may not even be a blessing. After all, none of the top elite individuals in the world relied solely on luck to reach there. Beside him, little Martin casually said. Lin Dong smiled and did not dwell on this topic. Following which, his gaze shifted toward Suru as he asked, "Do you have a way to help Little Ru control the power within her body?" Upon hearing his question, Sukue and Suru's attention immediately turned nervously towards little Martin, especially the latter. It seemed like the power within her body had truly troubled her. Little Martin's expression was solemn. Moments later, he finally said, "Over this period of time, I have probed her body. The remnant mental energy seal within that power has weakened over the passage of time and has become rather faint. This is pretty good news for her. Nonetheless, controlling it will still be a little difficult." Upon hearing his words, a disappointed expression immediately surfaced on Suru's face. Difficult also means that it's possible, right? Lin Dong knew little Martin very well. He knew that as long as little Martin did not absolutely reject something, he should have some inkling of how things could be done. Yes. Little Martin nodded and continued, "However, we will require some unique ingredients. Right now, we do not possess all of them. Thankfully, there is going to be a grand auction in 2 days. If we can obtain the necessary ingredients, I can help her to control a part of the power within her body. Even though it is not complete, even a part of it will be a powerful fighting force." "Is this true?" Sukue was delighted. Big brother Lin Jiao is incredible. A shocked yet joyous expression immediately surfaced on Suru's beautiful face. From the looks of it, if it were not for the modesty expected of a young girl, she would have dashed towards little Martin and hugged him. Don't celebrate too early. After all, that power does not belong to you. Even if you can control a part of it, you will still be severely restricted. Little Martin lazily said. Furthermore, you should change your personality as well. If you want to join us and partake in the 100 Empire War, you will likely have to dirty your hands. In fact, you may be even forced to kill. If you continue to act in a cowardly fashion, you may become a burden in the future. Little Martin's voice was calm. However, his words caused the joy on Suru's face to dim. Sukue bitterly laughed, glancing at Suru who had clenched her fist. He knew his sister's soft and gentle character. In a place surrounded by wolves, she was just like an innocent lamb. Lin Dong pursed his lips when he saw Suru clenching her teeth, feeling a little reluctant in his heart. At her age, it was a challenging task for her to participate in such a cruel battle. Don't worry, big brother Lin Jiao. I will not be a burden to you. The young girl tightly clenched her fist. Moments later, she finally lifted her head, revealing a stubborn expression on her beautiful face. A look that had been forced out by little Martin. Little Martin rubbed his nose. When he saw Lin Dong and the rest's peculiar expressions, he involuntarily pursed his lips and said, "Damn it. Why am I forced to be the bad cop every time?" While little Martin was cursing, he suddenly furrowed his brows. At the same time, Lin Dong slowly lifted up his head. Staring at the darkness surrounding them, he spoke, "Since you have arrived, show yourselves. Hiding in the darkness is for cowards." By their side, the cultivating little flame immediately opened his eyes. As he closed his palm, a metal rod covered in black scales immediately appeared in his hand. "Ha ha, you are indeed worthy of being the second-ranked member of the Earth category," an indifferent laughter sounded out in mid-air. Promptly, the darkness mutated as a grey figure mysterious appeared above the courtyard. Lin Dong's turned to look at that man dressed in grey clothes. He had a fairly normal appearance and did not stand out in any way. However, his hands, which were peeping out of his clothes, seemed exceptionally pale and long. Faintly, a cold, vicious glow flashed. However, even though he was merely a normal-looking guy, he caused Lin Dong's eyes to narrow immediately. He could faintly sense an extremely dangerous sensation from the former's body. Luo Tong. Beside him, when Sukue saw this figure, his expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in shock. The first-ranked member of the Earth category. Lin Dong smiled. He finally understood why he had such a powerful aura. It turns out that he was no ordinary individual. We are currently being watched by several empires. However, you are the first one to show yourself. Lin Dong faintly smiled as he said. After causing such a huge commotion, it is difficult not to draw attention to yourselves. The grey-clothed Luo Tong indifferently said. Following which, his figure descended before he landed on the courtyard wall. Speak. What do you want? Yang Mo and the rest were killed by you. Luo Tong stared at Lin Dong's face before he softly asked. Yes. Surprisingly, Lin Dong readily agreed and nodded his head. Since he had entered Wanxiang City together with Sukue, he knew that he would be targeted by the Windcloud Empire. They are members from the Windcloud Empire. You should not have touched them. Luo Tong slowly said. His voice was calm, yet it held a firm and authoritative tone. There is no one we cannot touch. Little Martin casually replied. Luo Tong's expression was cold. A cold and vicious glint flowed on his pale hands. He stared daggers at Lin Dong's group before he said, You should know by now. Our Windcloud Empire wants that little girl. I believe that since we have brought them into Wanxiang City, the message is clear. Lin Dong furrowed his brows before he continued, If that is all you wish to say, please leave. I am here to send a message on behalf of my Windcloud Empire. The three of you are extremely powerful, and if you join my Windcloud Empire, we can guarantee that you can successfully join a super sect. However, you must surrender that young lady to us beforehand. Luo Tong's eyes narrowed a little, before his finger suddenly drew an arc in the air. Immediately, a shockwave flashed by as a tree branch above Lin Dong's head was instantly ripped apart. I shall waste time with any threats. I hope that the three of you are understanding individuals. Or else, perhaps you may not be able to successfully leave this city. It is not wise to sacrifice your future for the sake of a stranger. Lin Dong's finger gently tapped on the back of his chair as he calmly observed the falling tree branch. The fracture was smooth like a mirror. I have said all that needs to be said. Whatever your choice may be, I hope that the three of you can give us your answer by tomorrow. Luo Tong casually glanced at Lin Dong's group before he turned and left. There is no need to wait till tomorrow. A soft voice slowly sounded out from Lin Dong's lips. Immediately, Luo Tong's figure paused before he turned his head to look at Lin Dong. I will give you your answer now. Lin Dong lifted his head as a bright yet cold smile slowly surfaced on his face. When he saw the smile on Lin Dong's face, a cold glint slowly emerged in the deepest corner of Luo Tong's eyes. As he stared at Lin Dong, he slowly spoke a few words in an ice-cold tone. A truly arrogant brat. This video will end here.